Good evening, and thank you all for coming out tonight on this lovely evening. My name's Jane Push, and on behalf of the Sherborn Energy Committee, I'd just like to welcome you. Tonight you'll be hearing about the Sherborn Solar Challenge, which is a program to encourage small-scale solar projects for residents and businesses in Sherborn and Dover. The program will go until November 15th. We're very excited to have two presenters this evening explain about the program, solar technology, financing, etc. And we'll finish with a question and answer period at the end. First, I'd like to introduce you to Elizabeth Youngblood, who is a project manager for the Commonwealth Solar Program and at the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. Elizabeth has been an active driver of the Commonwealth Solar 2 and Solarize Mass programs at the Mass CEC for the last 2 years. She's a Mount Holyoke College graduate and is currently working on her Master's of Environmental Management at the Harvard Extension School. Although the Mass Clean Energy Center is not directly involved with the Sherborn Solar Program, she's here to give us the basics about solar PV technology and talk about some of the incentives that are available in the state. So without further ado, Elizabeth.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for coming. I am very excited to be here tonight, to be invited to speak. Again, my name is Elizabeth Youngblood, and I am a project manager at the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. And my goal tonight is really twofold, to speak about the basics of going solar and also to speak about some of the incentives that are available in the state, both from our agency and other entities that are out there. Just a little bit about us, the Mass Clean Energy Center, we are a quasi-state agency. We were created by an act of legislation, the 2008 Green Jobs Act, but we get our funding from what's called the Renewable Energy Trust, which is a systems benefit charge on utility electricity bills. We are tasked with driving the clean energy economy in Massachusetts, and we do this in several different ways. We have a workforce development division that has a very active internship program with a lot of college students being paired up with renewable energy and energy efficiency companies throughout the state. And I actually think Solar Flare is taking advantage of that program, which is excellent. So if you know of any college-age kids out there, have them take a look at our website. I always like to plug that. We're also looking to get more girls in the program, so plug that as well. We also have a clean energy sector development division, a small investments division looking to incentivize clean tech startups in the state, and then there's the renewable energy generation division, which is my division. And what we look to do is incentivize commercially available technologies in the state, so solar electricity or solar PV, photovoltaics, solar hot water, wind, geothermal is on, actually we don't have that program yet, it's coming. And hydro, biomass, things such as that. We've also run the Solarize Mass program for the last 3 years, which is a program that I am also in charge of. I like to start with this slide. It shows that Massachusetts consumes a lot of energy, like many states. We consume about $22 billion worth of energy every year, but a majority of the funds for that energy actually go outside of the state. So in purchasing fuel and gasoline, a lot of our funds will go out to Canada or the Middle East, the Caribbean, or South America as well. One thing that we like to think about when we think of renewable energy is that it is distributed generation. It's being produced right on your home, it's being piped right into your electrical panel, and it's producing electricity locally. When you install solar, you're also employing local people to install, and the money is kind of staying in the area. Solar PV basics. So I will admit this slide looks a little religious. I really don't mean it to be, but I think it's some important information. Every 88 minutes, enough sunlight reaches the Earth's surface to produce enough power to power the world for a year. Every 112 minutes, there's more sunlight that reaches the Earth's surface than is stored in all proven oil, coal, and natural gas reserves in the world. So what's another way to look at this? If you look at the little orange sphere there, that is the total amount of energy consumption in the world. It's 16 terawatt years of energy every year. And then on the right-hand side here, you'll see the total finite energy reserves on Earth. So this includes coal, uranium, petroleum, and the little sphere there's ANWR up in Alaska, and natural gas. This is all that we have in the world. And then on the left are our annual renewable energy resources, including wind, wave, ocean thermal energy current, biomass, hydro, geothermal, and tides. Then you've got the sun, which is a huge, tremendous resource. 23,000 terawatt years per year. It's pounding down on us every day, and it's a tremendous resource that we can take advantage of. Now, a question that I get very often is, well, is there enough solar resource in Massachusetts to make solar work? And the answer is yes. We're not the Southwest with the bright solar irradiance of bright red, but we're actually right in the middle, in the kind of light green area. Something that I always like to point out is if you look at Germany down there, which is actually at the very bottom of the scale, they have a solar resource which is worse than even Alaska, which is one of our darkest states. Yet they install more solar than anywhere else. They're not the number one anymore, but they're one of the largest solar installers in the world. So we like to say that if they can do it, we can do it as well. Massachusetts also has really high electricity prices. We're actually currently 10th in the nation, and this is for a couple of different reasons. In part, it's because we don't have a lot of coal-fired power plants in our state. We bring in a lot of our resources from out of the state, natural gas. We're kind of at the end of the pipeline, along with a lot of our other neighboring states as well. So we have relatively high electricity prices. The graph down at the bottom is showing it's not a standard straight line by any means, but the cost for using electricity has been going up over the past 20 years at about 3% per year. You can see a bit of a dip there over the last couple of years. That is due to, in part, natural gas fracking has brought the price down a little bit. But we expect the price to continue to move up as the grid needs to be upgraded and the transmission lines need to be upgraded as well. This graph shows two different things. The red line shows the cost of solar in the state. It has been dropping over the past several years. You can actually see from this that over the past 10 years, the cost has dropped from something like, what do we have here, $9 a watt down to right now it's about $5 per watt is the average. And when I say $5 a watt, the average size system is about a 5,000 watt system. So $5 a watt, 5,000 watt system, that's $25,000. So, but that's dropped even in the past couple of years. When I started out in the industry and working at Clean Energy Center, it's even dropped from $7 a watt down to $5 a watt. So we have seen a drop in the solar prices. This is due in large part to the drop in the kind of panels and inverter prices. We have seen them dropping. I think to a large extent, it's bottoming out. I can't say for sure, but the panel prices have dropped precipitously over the past couple of years. And as a result, we've really seen the adoption rates go up a lot over the past couple of years. From very few installations now, in this year alone. That's actually 2012. I need to update these slides. I promise I'll do it next time. We've been getting a lot of rebate applications, so we're seeing 2,500 kind of residential scale projects in Massachusetts, which, as I've said, we get a lot of rebate applications in. This is good for the state. It's bad for my eyes. It means I have to review more rebate applications, but that's okay. We're willing to take it, so please feel free to go solar. Another way to look at the adoption rates in Massachusetts is to look at a map of the state. So this is a map of solar and other renewable energy installations in the state in 2006. And this is the same map in 2013. So you've seen a precipitous adoption of solar technology. So how does solar work? Photons from the sun hit the solar panels and dislodge electrons in a layer of silicon, which causes a current to occur. The panels are actually wired in series and go into a junction box, the wires do, and then there is a conduit line down into the inverter. So the panels are actually producing electricity in what's called direct current, or DC electricity, and the inverter converts the electricity to what is used in your home, which is alternating current, or AC electricity. What this is actually showing you is, we stole this from DOER, don't tell them. Actually, they know. So the electricity goes into the inverter and then goes into your electrical panel and is consumed on site. So if you have a load, if you have your TV or your lights on, the electricity will be consumed on site. We do have something in Massachusetts called net metering. So what happens if your solar system is producing a lot of electricity, it's a bright sunny day, but you're not home and all the lights are shut off and there is no load in the home. What will happen is that the electricity will actually go through what's called a net meter and out into the utility grid, and you'll be credited for the excess credits that were not used on site. So generally, that really actually makes the utility more like a banking system, in which at night or even later in the wintertime, when you're not perhaps producing as much electricity as you are consuming it, you can pull those credits back from the grid and use the electricity at that time, essentially. So it's kind of a one-to-one. It's almost at exact parity. So there are a couple very, very small things. I think 0.05 cents, 0.00. There are some very, very small things they won't credit you for, but for the majority of it, you're going to get almost a parity. So if you put X amount of credits onto the grid, you're going to get them back as electricity. A question that we often get at the Clean Energy Center is a solar PV system a storm ride-through technology? If there's a storm and the lights shut off and the whole neighborhood is out, will my solar system continue to produce electricity? And the answer is, unless you have a battery backup system, no, it will actually shut itself off. And the reason for this is that the utilities require that the inverter have an emergency mechanism in which it will shut off if it doesn't receive a very small amount of electricity from the grid, because that's its way of knowing if the grid is on. And this is called an anti-islanding technology, and it's set up so that if the grid is down, and let's say the system is producing lots of electricity but you're not consuming it, that the solar system won't put electricity onto the grid and potentially electrocute someone. So you need to get a battery backup system in order to have the system be producing electricity during a storm outage. Generally, that is fairly expensive to put in batteries. Oftentimes, we recommend people buy a generator for those kind of 1 or 2 times during the year when a storm might knock out the electricity. I have another slide about net metering. Essentially, you can think of the meter running backwards. So as you are producing electricity, literally the meter will run backwards. That's the way that we talk about it. As I said, they will be carried month to month indefinitely. Generally, what the utility will do is they will look at your consumption and then they'll look at your production. And if your production of electricity is higher than your consumption, you will be credited with extra credits. If your consumption is higher than your production, they will essentially take off the production from your consumption and charge you for anything extra beyond that. So what makes a good solar site? Really solar flare is going to speak to this in more detail, but generally speaking, you're looking for a southerly facing roof. Southeast, southwest can also work. The PV panels are ideally, they should be facing 30 degrees to 45 degrees. They should be at latitude, not actually flat on the roof. They should be receiving at least 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. The panels need direct light to work versus another technology like solar hot water, which is getting the heat from the solar versus the actual photons. So this is something that's very important. Many communities in Massachusetts are very shaded. We love our trees and they're absolutely beautiful, but sometimes they can cause problems with siting a solar system. So you need a lot of direct sunlight. The roof area, you also want enough space to put on solar. There's a rule of thumb of 100 square feet for every 1 kilowatt, with the average system being about 5 kilowatts or 5,000 watts. That's about 500 square feet. Also, if you don't have a roof that's good for solar, you might also consider putting in a ground or pole-mounted system. So as part of the Solarize Mass program over the last couple of years, we have taken some metrics numbers to find out, well, of the 300 or 400 people who have expressed interest, what percentage of them actually have a good site for solar. And it's different in every community, but oftentimes it could be as much as 40 to 60% of homes just don't have a good site for solar. So just to set your expectations, some people won't have a good site. So in those particular situations, and in fact, for anybody, whether you're going solar or not, please consider these options. Consider energy efficiency. You can sign up for a free energy audit from Mass Save. It's free, and they can give you some great, they'll give you some light bulbs for sure, some of the swirly light bulbs, and some ideas on how to save money in your home through energy efficiency, which we really consider the low-hanging fruit to do that first. We also have, as I said, we have a rebate program for solar hot water as well, so you might want to consider that in certain situations, and then also just spreading the word about this program as well in your community. All right, now let's talk about the incentives and economics. So far I've been talking about high electricity prices in the state. We've seen the cost of solar go down, and there are a number of incentives that are available to homeowners in the state. And that's what makes solar PV an economical decision to make. This is a stack of incentives. So I'll start with the tax incentives. There is a federal tax incentive that is worth 30% of the total cost of the system. There is a state income tax credit, which is worth 15% of the system up to $1,000, so usually capped at $1,000. There are rebates from the Mass Clean Energy Center, which I'll talk about in a minute. We've already talked about net metering, which is also an incentive, and then there is solar renewable energy certificates, SRECs, and then this isn't really an incentive per se, but along with a direct purchase option, there are options to lease or enter into a power purchase agreement, which I'll go into in a minute or so, but those offer essentially low or no money down options to going solar. So at the Mass Clean Energy Center, we offer what's called the Commonwealth Solar 2 rebate program, and this is based on the size of the system that you install. We incentivize projects up to 15 kilowatts or 15,000 watts systems, but we only give an incentive for the first 5 kilowatts, and that's at a base incentive of 40 cents per watt, so that's about $2,000. We do offer quarterly funding blocks of $1.5 million. People who come through our program, residential, commercial, we do see some public systems as well. The rebates do range from $2,000 to $4,250 for a 5 kilowatt system. As I said, there's a base rebate, and there are a couple other things that are considered adders on top of that, so incentive adders. So if you have a component, a panel or an inverter that is manufactured in Massachusetts, you would be eligible for a 5 cent per watt adder on top of that. So for the 5 kilowatt system, that's about $250. We also have what's called the moderate home value or the moderate income adder that's available. You would be eligible for one or the other, not both. And we also have, and I really hope that nobody in this community uses this, but a natural disaster relief adder in case a tornado or some other natural disaster does structural damage to your home, we're actually quite interested in having residents rebuild green. Oh, and the rebate, we've looked into it, it generally offsets about 7% the cost of the average system. Just briefly, so the moderate home value adder, we really look at it per county. If your home value, this includes the land and the home, is equal to or less than these property values. Is this Middlesex County? Yes, Middlesex County. If your home is valued at equal to or less than $400,000, then you'd be eligible for the moderate home value adder. For the moderate income adder, it's $75,810 for an individual, and then for a domestic unit, it would be $95,420. So some people are eligible and others are not, and they would get the base rebate. A couple things also to note about our program. We work with generally experienced installers. They've either gone through, we call it the crawl before you walk process, where we walk them through with a technical consultant and we inspect their system, or they've proven to us that they've worked in other states and they've done at least 10 solar PV systems. We have a few minimum technical requirements for projects to come through our rebate program, and that includes various different standards. The equipment needs to be UL listed, and it needs to be part of the California Energy Commission's list of approved equipment. They do a bit of testing on the different types of equipment. It needs to have various warranties as well, including a 20-year production warranty for the panels, and the inverter needs to have a 10-year warranty. I guess you call it the bumper to bumper. The total system needs to have a workmanship warranty by the installer for 5 years. In addition, in order to be eligible for this rebate, the system needs to produce at least 80% of what an optimally sited system would produce. So if you look at a solar system that is facing, due south, there's no trees, the orientation and the pitch of the roof is perfect, it would be producing at 100% of what an optimal system would produce. However, if your solar PV system is, a little bit south, not a little bit south, we want it south, a little bit east, a little bit west, the production will be a little bit lower. But if you bring in a tree or another couple of trees in the area, it might reduce the production a little bit more. So in order to get the rebate, it would need to meet our 80% of optimal production. Basically, our attorneys asked us to put this in here. So we will be issuing 1099s to the system owners of the, basically the system owner of the solar PV system. We cannot say we cannot give tax advice, but we recommend people talk to a tax advisor as to whether the rebate is considered taxable. There, I said it. So solar renewable energy certificates. I will admit to you that this is probably one of the more complex incentives that are available out there. So I'll definitely try to explain it. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. You can think of the SREC program as another revenue stream. So the utilities in the state are obligated to purchase a certain amount of their energy from renewable energy sources. And a certain carve out of that they have to purchase from solar, it has to be solar PV electricity or produced from solar PV systems. They can either install the solar systems themselves, or they can purchase what are called solar renewable energy certificates to meet their obligations. So what you can see here, there's kind of two revenue streams. There's the actual electricity that is produced from the solar system, and then there's what's called the green attribute of the solar. And that's really what makes it different from a brown electron, something that was created from coal or natural gas or oil. And that is what the utilities are obligated to purchase. So the average size system in this, one SREC is 1,000 kilowatt hours. I'd say on average, the average 5 kilowatt system produces about 6,000 kilowatt hours per year. So that's 6 SRECs per year. So in the state, there is a market for homeowners to sell their SRECs. Oftentimes, they will work with what's called an aggregator or a broker that will sell them for you, oftentimes at about a 5% cut in the SRECs. I'm not going to speak to that, to the installer, talk about that. But you are, under the SREC program, you're eligible to sell your SRECs for 10 years. And they can only, there can only really be one buyer to claim each SREC. Mass Clean Energy Center, we're the third-party verifier. So what that means is that you will be working with Department of Energy Resources, or really it's your aggregator. But we're kind of on hand to verify that essentially we kind of double check to make sure that the systems are kind of producing on average what they should be. If they're producing 7 times what the average system is producing, oftentimes we'll check on that. So. Yep, so oftentimes residents, the utilities don't really want to, work with a whole bunch of homeowners who are like, I've got 5 SRECs to sell. I really want to sell you these 5 SRECs. They want to work with an aggregator who can give them thousands and thousands of SRECs for purchase so that there's fewer transactional costs. That's really the purpose of the SREC aggregator. As I said, there is a market mechanism, so the SRECs can sell for various prices on this market. There is an ACP. There's kind of a top cap, which is, I think right now it's still $550, and then there's what we call the auction mechanism, which is in some ways it's a soft floor. So once every year, the DOER offers what's called a clearinghouse auction. So you can decide to put your SRECs into that auction, and the utilities are incentivized to purchase those SRECs for $285. Actually, it's $300, but then there's a $15 charge by DOER for service costs and things such as that. So you would then receive $285 for the SREC. And as I said, MassCC is the third-party verifier. We have a group called the Production Tracking System, which we work with daily. So I do have some news. It's good news and bad news. Back in 2008, there were something like 3.5 megawatts of solar in the state that had been installed. And then 4 months ago, we got news that 250 megawatts had been installed over, a 3.5-4 year period, which was amazing. The SREC program was meant to be put in place for 400 megawatts, and as of about a little over a month ago, we have hit that cap. So the Department of Energy Resources is doing 2 different things. First, they are extending the program for small-scale projects under 100 kilowatts. Projects are still eligible to come under this program if they are installed and interconnected by the start of the next SREC program, or SREC 2, which they are forecasting will be in early 2013. So whether it be January 1st or kind of sometime in Q1, we don't know. 2014, not 2013, because then it'd be, 2014. They're also in the process of developing the next SREC 2 program. There's actually going to be a stakeholder meeting next Monday. For anyone who's interested, you can go to the DOER's website. There will still be an SREC program. It might look a little bit different. So I think one of the things that would be important is that the volunteer team and the installer will keep you abreast of as to what's happening with the SREC 2 program. But I did want to say that the current program is still open for smaller systems that are interconnected prior to the next program. You can then be part of SREC 1. There is a lot of support from state representatives, including Governor Deval Patrick. Our original goal was to, his original goal was to get to 250 megawatts by 2017, and now he's given us a new goal of 1.6 gigawatts, or 1,600 megawatts by 2020. So that's a new goal. I'm really excited to try and get us to reach it. So we're very excited. As I said before, there are a couple different ownership options available in the state. We do see direct purchase where the homeowner owns the system. There is something which is called either a power purchase agreement or a lease. These 2 different options are somewhat similar. There are a couple of differences. Before I explain them both, what are you offering? A power purchase agreement. We'll talk about that. So the power purchase agreement, essentially, a third party would own the system and maintain it. They would install it on your roof. You would pay low or no money down up front, and you would then be required to purchase the electricity from that system at a reduced rate. So in many ways, the third party owner becomes your kind of new utility. So if your current utility is charging you at 15 cents per kilowatt hour, then under this program, the third party owner would charge you at generally less than what the going rate is for electricity. The lease is when you actually lease the equipment, so you'd be paying a monthly rate to a third party owner instead of just buying the electricity from the third party owner. So that's what the difference is. That's all I got. Any questions?
Does anybody ever do this to save money?
Absolutely, yeah, it's a good value proposition. Yeah, and I mean, I can't speak to the specific economics of what's being offered, but as I said, the average cost per watt in the state is $5 per watt. Under programs like Solarize Mass and kind of group aggregation, or group purchasing models like this, installers, they get a lot of benefit from a lot of leads coming in, and so they can really reduce their marketing and customer acquisition costs of sort, and also their kind of costs for purchasing panels and purchasing inverters. They can do that more in bulk, and therefore they could, give residents the benefit of those savings and offer reduced pricing. So, as I said, the cost per watt is in the state $5 per watt. So, but even at $5 per watt, it's still, we're still seeing payback timeframes in the 5 to 7 year period, and then once that's happened, you're essentially making money on top of that for the course of the system, which could last 20 to 30 years. We know of systems that have been up since the Carter administration and still producing. So, generally speaking, it can be a very good value proposition. Any other questions?
How come that I actually just sold an SREC and I only got like $200 back? How did that happen?
So you were probably selling the SREC in that market, so there is a range of what the SREC is valued at. So
below the 285.
Below the 285. So you didn't put that SREC into the auction. Mm-hmm. But I mean, one thing. Oftentimes what I find is, well, not me personally, but oftentimes residents will decide, well, I do want to put it into the auction, but a lot of like larger commercial or utility scale solar PV systems, they decide to sell on the spot market for a little bit less than what the auction is worth because they want to kind of make regular payments. The auction is held the July after that year. So if you produced your 5 SRECs, you might have to wait until the July after the close of that year to be able to sell them and recoup the money. But so that's probably what happened, is that you just sold it on the spot market. That's what it's called. Great. Well, with that, why don't I turn it back and have SolarFlare come up here and talk about the program that's happening in this community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it possible to get your presentation? Is it like, do you post it anywhere, or?
This is being broadcast, or it's being recorded, and it will be on YouTube.
I was just thinking of a hard copy of the date of it.
Yeah, I can give you a copy of it, so you can disperse it if you want. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
It was very interesting. I've seen the presentation before, but I'm always learning something new from it. It's very good. So thank you for coming out tonight and doing it. Okay, so yeah, next we're going to hear from our selected installer. Our Energy Committee spent several months screening and interviewing 3 installers that had already worked in the Solarize Mass program. So they were used to doing townwide programs and doing successful programs. We ended up going with SolarFlare, and we were excited to partner with them. SolarFlare is a Framingham-based company, and it specializes in roof and ground installations for residences and small businesses. The ground installation was one of their ability to do that was a major part of our decision to choose them, simply because a lot of rooftops in our town do have shade. But since a lot of us have large properties, there may be a section of the property that is sunny and out of the way and could take a pole mount or a ground mount. So that's just one instance as to why we went with them. Currently, they are working successfully in town-wide programs with, they just finished Arlington, they're doing Newton and Brookline as well. So I just encourage you to comparison shop yourself. I mean, we have this program, but by no means do you feel obligated that you would have to go with it. I would encourage you to find the best fit for your situation. But we do hope that the Sherborn Solar Challenge is one alternative that you'll consider. And please visit the website solarflare.com and click on the Sherborn Solar Challenge to sign up for a free assessment, or you can sign up here tonight at the table just outside the door. Next we have Dan Greenwood. He's the Vice President of Business Development for Solar Flare. He has a BS, a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and an MBA from Boston University. Before joining Solar Flare in 2010, he spent 20 years in the electrical contracting industry. Dan is responsible for commercial and sales and overseeing the residential programs, which is, or the residential sales team, which is our section. During the 2012 Solarize program, he managed a sales team that closed 247 projects. So a lot of good experience there. Dan, you're next.
So some of this that you're going to see, Elizabeth has already covered. And some of it I'll probably blow right past because I don't think you necessarily need to see it again. But these first few slides I do want to go over because as Elizabeth said, we're looking for south-facing roofs generally. It can be southeast, it could be southwest. We don't want to install on a north-facing roof. It's just not going to be a good, it's not going to be a good investment for you, and it won't make any sense. So the example I have up there is a bad example, as is this one. And the reason for this one is, although it has a nice south-facing roof with very few obstructions, it's got trees that are towering over it, causing a shadow during a good portion of the day. That's part of, even if you're not quite sure, you may as well submit your information to us and recommend your friends submit their information to us, because that's the first thing we do, is go on satellite and screen the house and see if we think it's a good fit or not. And whether it is or isn't, we're going to contact you and let you know. And if it's a great site, then we're going to call you and set up a site visit. And if it's not, we're going to call you and recommend some other things for you to do, including calling Mass Save. This is a great site. Not perfectly south, it's 160 degrees, which is about 20 degrees away from perfectly south. But aside from the orientation, it also is very clear. So some of the things that can make a project difficult are dormers, vent pipes, chimneys that cause shading, obviously trees that cause shading. That's a great site. I'm not expecting that we're going to see a lot of those here in Sherborn, and we understand that, but we're very good at what we do, and we usually can make recommendations on how to make the system work for your house. And I'll also, surprisingly, there's plenty of people that still decide to move forward on a solar project, even though they may not meet that 80% optimal access. They may not qualify for the rebate, but they still go forward because the system still could break even instead of 4 to 6 years. Might be a break even of more like 6 to 7 years. And so we've had plenty of people that have gone forward with projects even though it's not an optimal site. This is an opportunity we think is going to be big here in Sherborn, which is ground-mounted systems. So even though you may have some shading, if you have some space, we can always install ground-mounted systems. I'm going to show you some pictures of some installations we've done. So first, this is just some examples of what we did in the Solarize program last year. This is a house in Hopkinton that we did. It's kind of a standard rectangle. And this is what we refer to as a multiple array. So 2 separate arrays on the same roof. It's all tied together electrically, but some spacing between the panels. It could be even more spread out than that. It all depends on the layout of your house, but that can obviously work. This is a house where we installed both electric and solar hot water, so the 3 collectors here that look a little different. And we do both. So this program is mostly geared to, the pricing is mostly geared towards electric, and all the incentives that I'm going to talk about tonight are for solar electric or solar PV, but we also do solar hot water, and we're happy to do it. Here's an example. That's a garage, and the house is in the front of that picture about 20 feet away. So in that example, we installed the panels on the garage, trenched through the small section of backyard there, penetrated into their basement and made the connection in their basement. We've done the same concept with barns as well. This is an example of how we work around a dormer. Just another, I'm not sure how many people here in town have metal roofs, but this is a standing seam metal roof. It's probably hard to see that from where you guys are sitting, but it's another nice application for us. It's really easy to work with, and you can just clip it right to you can avoid some of the racking that's required by just clipping to the standing seams of the metal roof. That's an installation we did in Weston. We also do small commercial, and a lot of people probably recognize that building. That's a system we did for Ed Rose 2 years ago. It's a 17 kilowatt system. He's very happy with it. I happened to talk to him yesterday. He seemed very happy. He's about to get some SREC pans. Here's one example of the type of ground mount that we do. So this is the standard ground mount that we've included in our pricing in the proposal. That's a commercial installation, but we can apply the same concept to residential as long as there's enough space. So those panels are they're in groups of 9. 2 ballast blocks hold down the racking in 9 panels. It could be groups of 9, it could be groups of 6, it could even be groups of 3. And we'll just come on to the house and we'll evaluate what we think is going to fit, assuming you have the room. And if you don't have the room for that, there's another application, which is a pole-mounted system. That's the Pat Blueberry Farm in Holliston. And obviously it's more vertical than horizontal, but it's another application if you don't have enough space, then we could go with something that's more vertical like that. And that's quite tall. It's at the very top, that's almost 30 feet off the ground. But surprisingly, you can manually adjust those because there's a big pole that comes right up into the middle, and the racking that's underneath it makes it really easy. So you could have it at a really steep pitch like that, or you could make it less, more like a 20-degree or a 15-degree pitch if you choose. That system's been working for about 3.5 years now. These are the components that we're using under the program. If everybody grabbed a folder, we also have this, pretty much the same slide is in the folder. It just talks about the options that we offer. The middle one, the Canadian Solar, is what we offer for the standard pricing. We have some similar panels, demo panels here and outside. It's a blue cell with an aluminum frame, and that's what the standard pricing is. We also offer a black panel, an all-black panel that's also made by Canadian Solar. It actually looks more like that Suniva one. We offer an American-made panel, which is Suniva. They manufacture in Oregon, and they're based in Georgia. And on the left, we have the high efficiency panel from SunPower. It's a 20% efficient panel as opposed to the other ones, which are more like 15 to 16% range. And aside from the Canadian solar that I showed there in the middle, each of those other options is a cost adder, which I'll talk about when we go over the pricing. Some of the other components in the middle there is the racking we attach to your roof, and I have some other pictures that I'm going to bring up a little bit later, but we're going to have to attach to the roof through the shingles into your rafters. A lot of people are worried about, well, if you put holes in my roof, it's going to leak. But it can't, because if it leaks, then you call us and we have to run and fix it. So we're going to make sure that we don't put holes in your roof that are going to leak. We use flashing and show you the actual product. And I have pictures of the installation. But this is the flashing that would go up under your shingles. And it's gasketed. And so any penetration that we make is double gasketed and filled so that there can't be any leaking. And I can assure you that we haven't had any leaks. In the last year, we've installed over 200 projects in the last year, and we have not had any leaks. And we didn't have any leaks before that either. But this was the first year we had really, really high volume of residential as a result of the solarized program, and it's been very successful. But if there was any problem, you would call us and we would take care of it. The other components are the inverters. This is a picture of a central inverter, which is what our base pricing is, and I think Elizabeth talked about that a little bit. It converts the DC energy that's coming from the panels to the AC energy that matches the utility power that you get. It's important that we use the correct components because we wouldn't get approval for NSTAR otherwise. So you can be sure that whatever comes out of that inverter and ties into your electric panel is exactly what the utility company is expecting, and they wouldn't allow us to work here if we didn't do that. The other option here on the right is an N-phase microinverter. It's important because most of you are probably going to end up getting quotes with the microinverters. The reason is these make your system more shade tolerant, and I've got a feeling we're going to run into shade here in Sherborn. So when you use a central inverter system, the panels are grouped together in, let's say, groups of 8. They're wired together in groups of 8, maybe a group of 9. When you get shading on one of those panels, the output of all the panels in that string, they call it, or a group of panels, is going to be reduced. But when you install microinverters, each panel has its own individual inverter, and it acts independent of all the others. So if you were to get shading on one panel, it's only going to affect that one panel. And we've found that a lot of people like this product as opposed to the central inverter. And it isn't even necessarily because of that performance improvement. It also has to do with the warranties. So the N-phase microinverter has a warranty of 25 years, which matches the warranty of the panels. Whereas the central inverter, it comes from a company called Selectria. They're a great Massachusetts manufacturer. The warranty is for 10 years. And so we found last year in the program that a lot of people prefer the warranty of the inverter and the panels matching. The microinverter is an adder, but a lot of people preferred it anyway. I'll get into that with the pricing a little bit later. This is what it would look like in your basement. I showed you a lot of pictures of what it looks like up on your roof, and I think you've probably driven by some houses and seen that. But in your basement, depending on which inverter we use, it's either going to look like this, which is a central inverter. In this case, it was a larger system. So 2 central inverters side by side. Again, these have a 10-year warranty, an expected life of 15 years. Selectria is a Massachusetts-based company, so you actually get a little extra rebate from the CEC for using a Massachusetts-based company. But when you have shading issues, you will lose some production. What you're seeing here is the central inverters and a disconnect switch, a solar production meter, and another disconnect switch. So think about your basements and what kind of space you have available for an installation like that. Down in the bottom there, that is the setup that you'll have with a microinverter. So rather than the central inverters, you really just have the production meter right here. And then this communication device, which works with the monitoring that's offered with the microinverter. Some of the frequently asked questions that we hear, what if my roof is old? So without seeing the roof, it's kind of hard for me to answer, but generally here's what we think. If your roof is due to be replaced within 5 years, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and replace it before you install the solar. Because if the roof truly needs to be replaced after we've installed the solar, the solution is to take off the panels, take off the racking, put the new roof up, and reinstall it. So if you know that the roof is that close to being replaced, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and do it. But beyond 5 years, it's really going to be a judgment call that we won't make alone. We'll obviously look to you to make the decision, but we'll provide the best advice we can. The one thing I can say is once these panels go up on the roof, those shingles aren't going to see much weather at all. So they're not going to see direct sunlight. The shingles that are underneath the panels won't see direct sunlight. They won't see driving rain. They will get wet, but it's not going to be direct precipitation. Do I need to clean the panels or remove snow from them? And our answer is no. There's no need for it. Depending on the pitch of your roof, these panels are going to shed the snow relatively easy. But I will mention that when I say that, you got to think about the fact that they're going to shed the snow, and it's going to come all at once. And so it's something to be aware of. We put it in the operational maintenance manual, make it part of our training session that underneath these panels, you have to be aware that when the snow comes off, it's going to come off, kind of like an avalanche. But it does come off. I would say in a snowstorm of 6 inches, most of the houses probably shed that snow within a day or two. And in our production estimates that we put in your proposals, we assume about 18 to 20 days of lost production due to snow. When the snow is sitting on the panels, they're not going to produce electricity. But again, it doesn't last for very long. It slides off, and then the panels start producing again. They're going to produce electricity on a cloudy day, on a rainy day. It won't be as much as on a nice sunny day, but they still produce electricity. But not when they're completely covered by snow. Will the solar panels be able to withstand harsh environmental conditions? The answer is yes. You can have a look at them before you leave. They're very sturdy. We haven't had any break once they've been installed. We have had 1 or 2 broken bi-iron saws as they were put in because they dropped one panel on another panel. So we don't recommend that. But they're sturdy enough to walk on, and our employees do walk on them at times if necessary. They're also, the glass is a tempered glass like a windshield, and the UL test that they have to pass is a 1-inch steel bearing that's shot at them perpendicular at 53 miles an hour. And it has to withstand that test. So it's very difficult to break the panels. How much weight do the solar panels add? When it's a typical roof-mounted system like I was showing you there, it adds about 3 to 4 pounds. It's really 4 pounds at the very most, but usually it's about 3 pounds. And if it was a flat roof system that we use ballast blocks, I didn't show any pictures in this presentation because it doesn't come up that much. But on a flat roof system where we use ballast blocks to hold the panels down, it adds about 7 pounds per square foot. Who do I contact if something goes wrong? You're going to contact Solar Flare. So by the time we're done, you're going to get to know our outside superintendent pretty well, in the installation team, the engineering team. And we're going to hand over a book to you that's going to be your maintenance manual. It's going to answer all of your questions. And if anything goes wrong, you'll call us and we'll come out and respond and fix it. So just to reiterate the next steps, one way or the other, you contact us, get us your information. You can call Michael, you can email Michael at the Sherborn Solar or solarflare.com address. I recommend that you contact MassSave for an energy audit, and there's their website right there. When you do contact them, I do want to let you know that there usually is a lead time. They're not going to come out immediately. It's probably going to be at least 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes a little bit more, so be prepared for that. It depends on how busy they are, obviously. The deadline for this program is going to be November 15th, so we want to sign up as many people as we can by November 15th. Following that, we'll be doing the installations. We'll be starting to do installations even before that. And yeah, right away we do all the paperwork for you. So all the paperwork for the Commonwealth Solar 2 rebate is done by us. All the paperwork between you and the town for building permits, electrical permits, we take care of all of it. We handle all the paperwork between you and the utility company. And as Elizabeth said, we use a broker for the SRECs called SREC Trade, and we'll get you set up with an account with them. They're not the only ones out there, but they are the ones, the SREC rate that we recommend if you have other people. We're not against helping you sign up with other brokers, but we find SREC Trade to be pretty easy to work with. Do you have a question?
Well, I'm just curious about this SREC. What happens in year 11? Does it get renegotiated, or is it just that's it?
Most likely that'll be it. So-
Why?
Because the program was only scheduled to incentivize installation, but let me put it another way. The SREC program replaced rebates, so the purpose of it is to motivate people like yourselves to go ahead and get installations installed. But it wasn't intended to just be a constant flow of cash
So
coming
is
in
it
forever.
subsidized? Is that what it's subsidized? It's not the real
It is.
price? Is that what?
It is paid for by the ratepayers of the utility company for the most part. You want to talk about it?
So after the 10-year period, once that is over, then the SRECs actually turn into what are called regular RECs, which are renewable energy certificates. And there's actually a market for those as well, but it trades at about, if SRECs is about $285, the normal RECs are around like $10 to $50. So the amount that they're valued at is much less, but there'll still be a market for them.
So if you're generating more electricity than you're using in year 11, you can still sell it, but you won't get as much money as you, is that?
So actually so there are actually 2 revenue streams, so that's actually completely different, whether you consume the electricity or not. That's net metering, and that's just going to be there as it is. Once you sign up for going solar and you're signed up for the utility, you're going to have net metering, and whether you consume more than you produce, what have you, that's going to be there. So SRECs, you're going to be getting payments for the total amount of energy that you generated. It's the green attribute that you're selling, so it's what makes solar solar.
Oh, I see, okay,
Yes.
right. It's like the opposite of polluting, paying to pollute.
Okay, you got it.
Right, you're basically
Okay.
allowing utilities not to install that solar, so you're selling the
Okay.
green attribute of your solar to the utility.
Okay, that's what the SREC is. Okay, so then, is there some benefit to generating electricity that you don't use? Is there some other benefit? Financial benefit?
Yeah,
in
well,
your-
that's net metering, so what you're gonna get
Yeah.
is the same 17, let's use 17 cents, because that's a good number. I mean, that's high comparatively speaking to the rest of the states. So you're gonna get credited at that 17 cent per kilowatt rate, whether you consume the energy at your house, in
Yeah.
which case the meter isn't spinning at all, let's say.
Yeah,
Or when the meter's spinning backwards and the electricity's going out to the grid,
yeah.
you're getting credited at that same 17 cent per kilowatt hour rate. plus,
But what does that mean you're getting credited if you're not?
You can actually
using
receive a
it?
check from the utility company.
actually, not usually. You technically, you
My
sometimes
neighbor of mine
do.
has a solar system.
Yes,
She
and
gets,
so that always kills my, because they don't have to do that, they don't have to cut you a check. But sometimes they do, and if somebody calls up and asks for it, they will. But normally what happens is, we design a system, and over the course of a year, we would hopefully be able to design a system that would do about 100% of your electricity usage. In reality, what will happen is, in the summertime, you'll end up getting negative bills. You'll get negative bills from N-Star, but in the wintertime, you'll be working that credit off. But the beauty of the net metering program, and I think some people in the state, they don't realize that not everybody has that, and including in Massachusetts, if you're in a municipal light department town, they only want to offer you the wholesale rate or the generation portion of the electricity that you export out to the grid. So let's say 6 cents per kilowatt instead of 17 cents per kilowatt. So it's a tremendous benefit that you're going to get for the next 30 years. In 30 years from now, it's not going to be 17 cents per kilowatt hour. It's going to be, I don't know,
So
I don't even want to think about it, but it's going to be a lot more.
I just still have to understand, I get the SREC thing now. So in the summertime, I will be banking credit
With that
that's
stuff.
worth a certain amount of money because I would otherwise have to pay for it.
Yes.
And then in the winter time, however much electricity I use, I will have banked 17 cents a kilowatt worth.
Yep.
And in theory, it's set up so that the summertime banking will make up for what I don't produce in the wintertime. Is that right?
That is correct, assuming that we can put a system on your house that's big enough to do about 100% of your usage.
Okay, of course, right. Okay.
And then importantly, in addition to everything you just said, so that's just the net metering portion.
Yeah,
In addition to that is the SRECs.
right.
And I want to make sure everybody understands that you're not getting SRECs for just the excess that you export to the grid. It's for every single kilowatt hour you produce, whether you consumed it yourself or you export it to the grid. So it's 17 cents plus 28.5 cents for every single kilowatt hour you produced up until year 10. And then after year 10, kilowatt hours are probably going to be a lot more expensive, is my guess, because the cost of electricity will continue to go up. Your SRECs will drop out, but the cash flows still look really great. And remember, you broke even probably around year 4. So you've been getting free electricity and SRECs, for quite a while.
So one more question. So the 17 cents is what N-Star basically just decides what they're going to offer. Is that correct? Or is it regulated
It's regulated.
by,
It's the Department of Public Utilities.
so how come this other company doesn't have to do 17 cents? This other Massachusetts energy company?
So the process with the DPU and how they set rates, it's a little backwards
Or the
in my
district
mind, but
line.
they kind of justify how much it costs them to produce the energy.
Okay.
And then they ask if they can charge that rate. And it may not happen, it doesn't really keep up in real time, but you guys have seen what the cost of electricity has done over the,
Well, that's my next question. So let's say 15 years from now, will N-Star be required to sort of keep up with the rising cost that people are paying them for electricity and what they credit people with?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's law. So
Okay.
that's the beauty of the net metering law. So they're not going to say, well, sorry, you invested in solar in 2013, but now you're going to take a discount. Once we do everything that we have to do and fill out all that paperwork on your behalf, you're eligible for net metering, and that's solid. You're not going to lose that.
And that stays with the house,
Stays with
not with
us.
the,
Yes.
Who keeps track of that? N-Star or you? All those
Who keeps-
calculations?
Well, initially, we do the calculation for you based on today's rates. But in the future, after the system's installed, the rate is just the exact same as what they would have charged you. So I mean, it's N-Star's rates. And instead of charging you for it, you're gonna get credited for it. And the rate fluctuates. Sometimes it actually goes down, but it's not like a special solar rate versus what they normally charge you. It's they're one and the same. And so whatever you were going to pay N-Star, now you're gonna get credited from N-Star.
Does N-Star provide individuals have a question of receiving checks?
So
What's this?
this is
response?
anecdotal. I've met with customers who, once they build up some credits, and some of them are our customers, and some are customers of other installers, and they build up credits, and they call up N-Star and they complain, and they say, when are you going to send me a check? And somehow they get them to do it, but I usually don't promise that to my customers because I think by law they are allowed to do it, but they are not required to do it. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Yeah, they're not required to do it. So generally speaking, you would, if let's say you installed a system that was producing more electricity than you were consuming, you could generate credits indefinitely. So you'd have all these excess credits. So generally speaking, I mean, two things to say about that. There is another program called virtual net metering where you can take some of those extra credits and give them to another account. There are some requirements that surround that, but you can, donate them to a nonprofit or to a family member. There are various load zones in the state. There are 3 load zones, so you have to stay within that. But that is one potential option, is to give those credits to a different account, electricity account. Oftentimes in the state, the average consumption of electricity is about 7,500 kilowatt hours. And so if you look at that average 5 kilowatt size system, that's going to produce about 6,000 kilowatt hours. So you're actually, on average, you will be consuming more than you're producing. That's totally different depending on who you are and how much you consume. It's totally dependent on what your consumption is. But oftentimes, the solar, you might be space constrained. So you will be in a situation where an installer, solar flare, or whomever will be able to install a system at 80% or 90%, maybe 100% of your consumption. But I think that's most installers don't install larger than that unless there's a specific purpose. Like if you're going to have children, or their children are young, and then they're going to be consuming more electricity in a couple of years, and then you can plan for that. Or if you're looking to put in a charging station for a future electrical car or something like that, where you want to bank credits now. Or there might be reasons why you oversize your system, but oftentimes, from what we understand, installers really do try to install it at 100% or smaller.
Our initial proposal will always be around 100% or less. I don't mind if it was close, say 103%, 105%. I've given these guys the okay to go ahead and give you that proposal, and you'll see it right in the proposal. It's a fairly lengthy proposal. It's going to have a lot of information. One of the pages is a nice chart that shows you how much energy we estimate the system is going to produce as a percentage of your usage. We will ask for a bill. One of the pages in that folder that you grab is a what to expect for your site visit, and we ask you to give us a copy, or at least have a copy available that we can take a picture of a recent N-Star bill. We just need one. We don't need a whole year's worth, because one bill has a year's worth of your usage. We plug that into the program, and we'll be able to estimate, just like what Elizabeth's talking about, if it's a 5 kilowatt system, we know it's going to produce around 6,500 kilowatt hours over the course of the year. And then we'll look at what your usage was in this past year, and we'll show you what percentage that is. But we won't go much over 100 unless you tell us to, in which case, we're happy to do it. And I did it on maybe a half dozen houses last year, mainly for two of the reasons that Elizabeth brought up. A lot of people decided that they wanted to get an electric car in the future, and so they were just going to bank the electricity for now, and you can bank that credit indefinitely. And then I had other people who we had one customer up in Essex who put a system on his barn. It was an 18 kilowatt system. He had already had a 4.5 kilowatt system installed like 3 years before. He didn't need any more electricity. And he's taking all of the electricity from that 18 kilowatt system and donating it to a local food pantry, which I thought was really nice. He's going to take the SRECs, but he's going to donate all the electricity.
I'm not very knowledgeable about the size of the panels. My husband wanted to know what the size of a 4 kilowatt system would be in square footage, if you're putting it up on a single roof.
Sure. So a 4 kilowatt system is going to be 16 panels. And each panel is roughly 15 square feet.
Thank you. And then my other question that he wanted to know was how much does this system degrade over the years? Does it continue at its 100% efficiency
No.
from the installation date, or does
No.
it
We
cut to
assume-
50% in 5 years? that
Not
sort of thing?
50%. We've assumed a degradation factor of 0.4% per year. And that's recommended by the manufacturer. In our proposal, last couple of pages is assumptions and disclaimers. And that's one of them. So it'll be there if you look, if you stick with it and go all the way to the back of the proposal, it'll be there. The 25th year of the warranty, your warranty for 80% of the nameplate rating. If you do 0.4% times 25 years, roughly works out. Yes.
One of the primary incentives for this is to reduce carbon footprints, isn't it?
Yes.
So we're using energy that's cleaner than the oil and gas that the utility companies use.
Correct.
That's a major benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well,
Yes.
Have you come across issues of ground-mounted or pole-mounted things in terms of setback from lot lines?
Yes. Usually, in every town is different, and we haven't done a ground mounted here in Sherborn, but usually it's 20 feet from the property line and
Well, the usual setback here is 60
60
for
Okay.
structures. Is this
Right.
a structure we're talking about?
It's in the eye of the beholder, and the decision maker is going to be the building department and the planning board, I
But
guess.
aren't there some state regulations that these systems cannot be denied? I mean, aren't there certain overriding state regulations?
Not for setbacks, though.
Oh,
Yeah, so what you're referring to is if something was commercially zoned, industrial zoned, or residentially zoned, you can install it on any of those.
so it's more of an aesthetic,
But-
you can't do for aesthetic.
Yeah, but when it comes to setbacks, whether that's from property lines, or from wetlands, or from wetland buffer zones, railroad tracks, you still have to go by the setbacks. Having said that, we found towns to be very flexible when it comes to solar. They generally are supportive of it, and they have let us go in the case of wetlands. They're not going to let us put solar on a wetland, but they forego the buffer zone as long as we're going to be responsible and put up the necessary protection to make sure that while we're constructing this, we're not doing anything to impact the wetland. But usually, whatever the town's setbacks are for property lines, that's what we have to go by.
I actually asked Mike this question, but I'm just curious to bring it up again. Have you had situations where a neighborhood has gotten together and put up, say, one big system and then shared?
No, but we're willing to look into it, sure. So where it starts, we've had people ask. They usually tend to be in cities, which brings on it's more difficult because there's less space. And where it usually fizzles out is the legal structure that would govern that. And it's really not something that, we can certainly assist with it, but it's going to require attorneys to figure it out. And we're big proponents of that concept in like a community solar on a large scale, because we do that. I mean, we're talking tonight mostly about residential, but Solar Flare also installs large, like 1 megawatt ground mounted systems. We have one in Ashland, not too far from here. We did that for a private business, but we see no reason why the same concept couldn't work for a group of, say, 50 homeowners, maybe 50 plus homeowners that couldn't install systems on their house, or they prefer the economies of scale that you get on a large system.
Well, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
Although I'll say with this pricing, the economies of scale, we kind of bridge the gap quite a bit. You're getting almost the same price here that you would get on one of those large ground mounted systems in the ownership model. Yes?
Another question my husband wanted to know.
No problem.
What's the effectiveness of indirect sunlight, if you get trees shading it versus direct sunlight? How effective is it if you've got a lot of shade, I guess, basically?
Yeah, well, that's part of, it's hard for me to answer.
That's where the site visit
Yes.
would have to come in.
So when Mike comes out to your house, he's going to have a gadget called a sun eye. And he's either going to go up on your roof or he's going to put it on the top of a tall pole. And it's going to take an image and make an estimate of how much solar access you get over the course of a year. And from that, we'll plug all that information to the proposal, and all the numbers will spill out. You plug in our cost, your utility bill, Suneye information, and we'll estimate how much production we think the system's going to have based on the panels that we've chosen. But it's still like, here's the best way I think I can answer that question is, we had people who, I'll be honest with you, in Arlington last year, there were some people that I said, I'm not sure that you really want us to come out to your house and do a site assessment. It really doesn't look like a good site. And they said, no, I still want you to come out. I want to find out. I'm curious. So we go out and we do a site assessment, and their solar access is only 60% because their neighbors have really tall trees and there's nothing they can do about it. They're not going to get the rebate from the state, and they still decided to go forward, and their break even will probably be 7 to 8 years. So it still works, and each house is different, but you don't have to have, the maximum amount of sunlight for these systems to still work. But it's hard for me to answer generally because everybody's house is so different.
And then, once it's all installed, are there maintenance costs or maintenance items over the next 20 years?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll stand by that.
Unless you change up the inverter.
Correct, yeah, I'm sorry, if you
Right, if
ended
you
up with a
get the
central
10-year
inverter that has
Right.
an expected life of 15 years, and so that would be a,
There's a battery I replaced part of the monitoring system.
what's that?
The battery.
You had to replace it?
I replaced the battery. It's a pretty large battery. It's part of the monitoring system, like the Ethernet, whatever.
Yeah, was it, do you think it was defective, or do you think the
No,
battery
I
just?
think it came up with something that says
That's good to know. You could call us.
no, I think battery.
I'm happy to answer questions, or we
I
can.
do have one
Sure.
question, and that is, looking around the people who are here, I was not the only person thinking about this, I'm not going to be living in my house in Sherborn for 25 years. And in a conservative community like this, or even conservative state in certain ways, I'm just wondering what happens when you want to sell your house and you've got these panels stuck on your roof. What are you hearing? What are you guys hearing about how people, potential home buyers, are responding, because this is a very new thing.
Sure.
You don't see very many houses in Massachusetts with solar panels on their roofs. I'm just
Well,
curious.
That's changing, but,
Right,
yeah,
I'm
there's
just
more and
curious
more.
whether
I don't know, do you have any
any-
statistics?
You know, that's something that we're looking into, is doing a study on home value prices in Massachusetts or in New England. Anecdotally, I mean, I can't say if the home would sell for more. We have been hearing that they sell faster because the solar system is producing electricity. It is a revenue generating source. It is considered a benefit in many ways. I mean, there is the idea of aesthetics, whether
That's really what I'm wondering, whether people think, "Ooh, I don't know."
and people, that the idea of is what does solar look like, is ugly or beautiful, is, you know, it is actually changing. I feel like, you know, people are like, that's solar, that's great, that means something. There is a study out of California, and now California is a bigger market than Massachusetts, but they found that for every dollar you put into installing the solar, the home value would rise by that dollar. Actually, so a $17,000 system, that house would then sell for $17,000 more than what it potentially would have. It's a study out of Berkeley Labs. If you
Yeah,
if
I
you
have
look-
seen
did
that.
Google, yeah, that's, unfortunately, we don't have that for New England, so I don't have any statistics, but it's on our radar.
Yeah, I just was curious whether, like, real estate agencies, you know, are giving any anecdotal feedback.
Yes, I've got some feedback, and it's generally positive. In fact, one of our customers, and the woman who designed our website, she just recently moved from Medway out to California, so she's in the process of selling her house, and she said that she's got a lot of positive comments about the fact they have it right on the front of their house. It's not one of the pictures I had in there, but it's right in the front of the house, and I think that it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, I would say. Like, so if there's somebody, if somebody who is already interested in solar comes walking up to buy your house, they're obviously going to value it, you know, aesthetically and financially. But somebody who hates, I don't think anybody would argue the financial part of it. It's a good financial benefit to your house if you have solar on it. So it kind of comes down to the aesthetics.
Yeah.
And I understand some people don't like the way it looks, but plenty of people do. And then there's a lot of people who are just kind of ambivalent about it. But they're okay with it, but it's not the aesthetics that really drives them. It's more the financial and the environmental benefits of it that makes them interested.
Thank you.
I'll just say one more thing. I've actually gone through the assessment. My house does not, I would encourage people here, as well as anybody who watches this, my house does not face, the roof doesn't face south. There's a lot of trees around it. And so I was curious. And in the end, it turned out to have a reasonable rating, which was sort of like 0.85. But it was enough to qualify, and I was surprised. So I would encourage people to get the assessment through if they're a little worried about what the shading might be and the angle of your roof. And could be pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah, I would echo that. Please do, if you're interested, please sign up for an assessment and you'll find out more about your own home and your own property, and that's always worth knowing. The assessment doesn't take long. I had one a couple of days ago, and it took a couple hours, but anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on how many questions you have. A lot of this is site-specific, but I can certainly say, it was an excellent presentation tonight, and all the dealings our committee's had so far with solar flare has been excellent, and so I expect you'll find the same. And please tell others about the program so that we can get to that tier 5. Would be really nice.
More articles in the papers.
More articles in the paper. Yeah, if you can recommend certain, if you frequent more certain papers than others, let us know, because how did you find out about this tonight?
Well, I got an email from,
Email? Okay.
From John.
Yeah.
and it was all, and also Paul Dorenzis did it on the Sherborn Distribution Network.
Yeah,
And then there was the article in last Thursday's paper.
okay. Was it the Hometown Weekly or the Dover Press?
I don't remember which.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out which ones are the best marketing streams.
But there's also Pine Hill School Parent newsletter that's going to go out the first week of September.
Yeah, that would
And
be.
that goes out to some 400 and some families.
Yes, we plan on,
And the Hometown Weekly goes to every household.
right.
And also wasn't there something in the, what's it called, the thing that gets sent out for people over 65? Is there
Oh,
something
link.
there?
The link.
The link.
Yes,
The link.
we did,
Yeah.
and there'll be an
Council
insert in the
ID.
link coming out August 20th, was when the insert will go in, so your September issue. There will be a flyer specifically for snow and fire. So, I think we've reached the end of our time for tonight. I think Elizabeth needs to leave, but if you have any questions for Mike Perkins, who is our designated salesperson for Sherborn, he's in the back there, and Dan will be around, then please feel free to do that, and I'm here as well, our Jane Bush. Okay, so but thank you very much for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much.